Sawadee-krap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is the unofficial restart of our group learning program, where over a 7-month period, I'm going to be walking you guys through this book, Developing a Life Practice, the Path That Leads to Enlightenment, helping you to establish a foundation in the path to enlightenment. What enlightenment is where the mind is completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are completely eliminated from the enlightened mind, and this is through training of the mind. So what the Buddha is going to be able to help you to understand is this training to do to the mind so that you can transcend all of these feelings where you no longer have to feel sad and angry and frustrated and lonely and all these other discontent feelings, because it's quite miserable to live that way. But also, by the time you get to enlightenment, you will have focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory, where your mind will be performing optimally because you've purified the mind and you've uprooted certain pollutions that are in the mind. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming and they're at ease. You won't even be in a bad mood any longer because the causes and conditions that produce the bad mood have been eliminated. So that's what I'm going to be sharing with you. And we have our official restart of the group learning program next week on Sunday, the 1st of June. But today we're kind of doing like an unofficial restart where I'm opening up to all of the students to be able to get to know me and understand a bit about the teacher. Because if you're going to study with someone, it's kind of nice to know a bit about that person before you actually spend the time and investment of your energy to be able to learn the teachings that that person shares. So I'm going to guide you guys in a meditation session first so that you guys can get a little bit of practice of meditation. And then afterwards, we're going to have a session where I'm basically going to turn the class over to all of you guys to ask any and all questions that you would like to ask about my past or my current life or what I'm planning for the future and all these various aspects of my life. So I'd like to welcome all of you, whether you're joining on Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or whether you're watching this on the replay. Welcome to everyone. And at the same time, I'd like to invite you to join for our meditation session. The way that I do the meditation is I start with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. And I'm going to be teaching you guys this chanting as part of the group learning program. About probably 2 months from now, we're going to have a 4-part series where I'm going to teach the Buddhist chanting. But up until that time, we'll just be doing the Buddhist chanting and get a chance to kind of practice it a bit. And I know some of you guys already know the chanting because you've been studying with me for a little bit. So you're more than welcome to chant along. For those of you guys that haven't learned these chants, or even for those of you guys that have, if you would like to see the chants that I'm doing, you can go to our website because you're probably online right now. You can go to buddhadailywisdom.com. And when you go to buddhadailywisdom.com, you click on the free books. There's a link on the top that's free books. And if you scroll down towards the bottom, you'll see the daily chanting sheet. And that's what I'm going to actually be chanting, because the chants are in the Pali language. This is the historical language of the teachings of the Buddha. And they used chanting during the lifetime of the Buddha in order to commit the teachings to memory. That every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally, because the technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world. It didn't make its way to that region of the world until after the Buddha's death, or maybe right before he died, somewhere around that time, where they were able to actually document the teachings. But up until that time, the Buddha had his students reciting his teachings orally through chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. So you can see from the origins of chanting that there isn't anything mystical or magical here. This isn't a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony, or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. Even when you look at the English translations that I provide, you can see that there's a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. But you shouldn't think of this as worship or prayer or anything like that, because this was solely used as a learning device to be able to help his students commit the teachings to memory. Where nowadays we have books, we have audiobooks, videos, podcasts, things like this. We don't need to do chanting in order to be able to remember the teachings. We use it in order to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. And to respect somebody doesn't mean that you put yourself below them. So because when I chant, I'm showing respect to the Buddha, I'm not putting myself below him, and he doesn't consider himself above me, of course, during his life, because an enlightened being would have eliminated their ego. So these chants that we chant with all this admiration and gratitude and respect towards the Buddha, I don't think the Buddha actually created these himself, because a Buddha, an enlightened being, wouldn't go around with arrogance and pride and say, here, chant all these things to me out of respect to me. That would be arrogance and pride if somebody did that. So I'm almost certain that these chants came from his students, either during his life or after his death, because if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger and the sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings to this peaceful and joyful mental state, which is a permanent mental state that your mind is always in, and this teacher just helped you out of the kindness of their heart without any expectations or wanting anything from you, you would probably have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, or respect for that teacher too. So that's where I suspect these chants actually came from, because nowadays people have an enormous amount of respect for the Buddha. And I imagine during his lifetime and after his death, shortly after his death, there would have been plenty of people that had an enormous amount of respect for him. So that's why I do the chanting, is to help ease the mind into meditation. And we're also going to do it when we come out of meditation, to ease it out of meditation. And I will teach this to you. And if you're interested in learning it prior, it's been recorded many times where I've taught students how to chant. So you'll be able to find this on our podcast or on our YouTube channel or anything like that. After I do the chanting, there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet. There's going to be a period of time where I'm just providing you guidance. I'm going to provide you guidance for about 5 minutes or so about how to actually meditate. I'm going to be essentially instructing you in meditation while we're actually meditating together. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's quiet and we're just all meditating together. Then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting, and then that's where I'll start today's class. So if you'd like to take a position, either seated, lying, or standing, these are the 3 positions that work really well for online learning. There's also a walking position that the Buddha taught, and I teach that as well in the various courses and retreats that I share. But typically when I'm teaching online, students are typically in either the seated, lying, or standing positions. The seated position is a common one, so I'll give you guys a little bit of guidance on this. That you can either sit on the floor, or you can sit on a chair or a bench or a sofa, a wheelchair, anything like this. There isn't just one certain way to actually sit, because all of our bodies are different and we're going to find different things to be comfortable. So I'll give you guys a little bit of guidance on the seated position just to help you get started. But don't take anything that I have to say about the seated position as there's just one way to actually sit, because I'm going to give you lots of different options and things for you to consider, because you need to find what's comfortable for you. That's what's important. Even if it's not something that I've shared, if you can find a position that's comfortable, that's what you would like to use. But I will give you some suggestions that are going to help you as you're looking for some nice, comfortable positions. If you're on the floor, sometimes people like to have cushions, or you might have pillows or something like this that you can put under your rear in order to make it softer. And then if you're deciding to cross your legs, you would like to do that just lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, then it can impede the circulation and it can cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat because this gets the hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, and allows the circulation to flow. In terms of the hands and the arms, the Buddha put his right hand over his left and his thumbs together. Then he put this down into his lap. And if this is comfortable for you, you could use it. But there's other options as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you could put your hands and arms wherever you like. And if anybody's in a chair or in a sofa or a bench or a wheelchair or something like this, oftentimes people put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles. Or when I'm at the temple, I sit in a chair cross-legged. So there's many different options. There's not just one way to actually sit during meditation. And then if you're in a chair, you can put your hands and arms wherever you're comfortable as well. In terms of your upper body, you would like this to be erect with your sternum up and your shoulders back. This will help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. So if you have your shoulders up and your sternum up, this is going to allow you to actively train the mind, because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert when you're actually meditating. So having the sternum up and the shoulders back will help you to be able to do that. It also helps you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to do some chanting to ease us into the meditation. You guys are welcome to join in. And then I'm going to come back in with the guidance. Then you'll see a period of time where it's just quiet and we're meditating. Then we're going to come out of that with some more chanting. And that's where we'll start today's class. Ara หังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาพุทธังมหาเขวันนังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมรัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมรัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมรัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that the mind moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะคะวะโอตังมะคะวันนังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโอโตภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation, I'd like to once again welcome all of you guys to our class today. It's nice to see so many of you guys in our class. I know that many of you guys have been studying with me for a long-term period of time, and some of you guys might be brand new to meeting me. This is the unofficial restart of our group learning program, where next week we're going to have the official start of our group learning program, where typically what we do is we have a meditation like we just did, and then afterwards I'll move into a talk about the teachings. We have 7 months of learning ahead of us, where I'm going to be gradually walking you through this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This is part of the Words of the Buddha book series, and what you're going to be able to do is learn the teachings of the Buddha based on his original words. This is very rare in the world to be able to actually study the original words of the Buddha. And that's what's actually going to produce results for you. That's what's going to help you get to enlightenment. If you weren't studying with the original teachings of the Buddha, his original words, you wouldn't actually be able to make your way to enlightenment. So what you're going to see me doing is throughout our course, throughout this entire program, I'm going to be integrating the words of the Buddha into our class so that you can see exactly what he taught and you can see what he didn't teach as well, because there's a lot of misinformation in the world about the teachings of the Buddha. All these books and this entire book series is made available to you at no cost. You can download it from our website by going to buddhadailywisdom.com, and I recommend that you get this first book. You can download it for free. You can take it and go print it if you'd like. If you'd like to get printed versions, you can get them on Amazon, or we have them at the temple here in Chiang Mai. So you'd like to be gradually learning little by little. And I'll explain this to you next week when we have our official restart. I'll explain to you how to get the most benefit out of this program. I'll explain to you what the whole program is about. We'll go through many different things to be able to help you really officially get started. But what today is all about is giving you guys the opportunity to get to know the teacher. Because if you're going to invest time and effort and energy to learn from an individual, you might be interested to know a bit about that person. So what we've organized here is an opportunity for all of you guys to be able to ask questions that you would like to me about anything about my life, whether it's in the past or present or anytime in the future. If you're curious of what I'm going to be doing as I embark on this journey to share the teachings of the Buddha with the entire world, you're welcome to ask all of those kinds of questions. The way that we typically do this is I kind of turn it over to you guys. And Samantha, who was actually with me this morning at the temple here in Chiang Mai and led our session at the temple, has volunteered to kind of moderate for us to kind of get things started and kicked off. But then as you guys have questions, you guys are welcome to chime in at any time. Samantha will kind of give you kind of the gist of, what the session's going to entail. But if at any time you would like to ask questions, if you're in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can put that into the comment section and I'll be able to see your question in the comments. But if you're in Zoom, you have the added feature of being able to electronically raise your hand, and then you can unmute your microphone and you can ask any and all questions that you like. And Samantha will be able to see your questions in Zoom as well. So if you decide you'd like to put those into the comment section rather than raise your hand, you're welcome to do that as well. So what I'm going to do is just turn things over to Samantha and invite you guys to join in for our class and just really give you guys a nice warm welcome to the unofficial start of our group learning program here.
Thank you, Teacher David. Hello to everyone. And I see a lot of faces here who have been studying with Teacher David for some time, and then also some new ones. So what we did this morning, or with the earlier session, was we did a little bit of a timeline with Teacher David. So his childhood, adulthood, and then moving to Thailand, studying Buddhism, and then his transition to a teacher. So that flow seemed to work. What I would like to do is maybe just start with some basic questions that everyone seemed to want answers to, and then open up to the rest of you for further questions. So I think a good place to start is, as we know, many things that happen in our childhood affect our decision making and life further on. So I wonder, Teacher David, if you could give us an idea of what your childhood was like, and also maybe some of your problems that you had.
Sure, I can definitely do that. So my childhood was very turbulent. It was a very difficult childhood. When I was born, my mom was a single mom at the time because my biological father had decided to leave prior to my birth. So I was born to a single mom who didn't have very many resources available to her. She was working for the government at the time in Washington, D.C. We were living just outside of Washington, D.C. I was born in Washington, D.C. And we were essentially poor, that we lived in a mobile home park, a trailer. We didn't really have many clothes or much food, things like this. My mom basically made our clothes. My grandparents helped us with some of the financial things. But over time, she ended up meeting a man who became my stepfather. That's where my last name comes from, Roylance. This individual adopted myself and my sister, and my name was changed to his name. I was adopted at the age of 8, and he became my stepfather. Growing up, it was very turbulent. There was a lot of abuse in the home. Physical abuse and otherwise. There was all that going on in our home, a lot of hostility, a lot of bitterness, a lot of fear. As I grew up, I didn't really have much guidance. My mom and my stepfather really didn't get involved with my life whatsoever. I was kind of left to my own devices. Where I really kind of looked for mentorship and guidance was my grandmother and my grandfather, who I would oftentimes spend a lot of time with, like on the summer breaks and stuff like that. And over holidays and weekends, I would go to my grandparents' house. And that was kind of like my safety, my refuge, because they didn't beat me and they didn't abuse me. So that was the place where I went to be around people that I felt was caring and loving and kind. At home, it was just always a bunch of turbulence. And as part of that, as I was growing up, I got into all kinds of trouble. People would describe me as a juvenile delinquent, I'm sure, because I committed crimes and I went through the court system. I got sent away by the court to a group home where boys would go that were having challenges and struggles in their life. I got sent away to this place, and there I kind of like, learned some things that was helpful for me. But just prior to that, my most significant girlfriend, my very first girlfriend, significant girlfriend, she ended up dying when I was 16 years old. She was older than me. She was 18, and she was pregnant for about 4 to 6 weeks pregnant. She didn't die from the pregnancy, but this was a very traumatic time for me where I ended up going into deep sadness for several years because of this. And of course, I didn't understand what that sadness was from at that time. But I was in a deep sadness for a really long period of time, committed a whole lot more crimes and things like this. I ended up dropping out of school. The last grade that I completed was 8th grade. I never completed 9th grade because I just couldn't continue to go to school. It just wasn't something I was interested in. And I ended up getting sent away to this group home. And there I ended up getting my GED, which is like a graduate diploma for high school. And then I went straight into college. So I was into college at 17 years old. So even though I didn't go to 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, I had enough understanding that I could pass the test to be able to get a high school diploma. And then I just went straight into college. And then I started taking classes there, ultimately graduated with a bachelor's degree in information systems management, which is computers and management and business and things like this. This was kind of like my childhood, and it was very turbulent, very difficult. And I just couldn't wait to get out of the house. When I left my parents' house at the age of 16 to go away to that group home, I never moved back in. From that point forward, I just stayed with my grandparents for about a year and a half, 2 years. Then I went to college. And then after college, I went and got my own place because I wasn't interested in going back to my parents' home.
You mentioned your grandparents and then also the group home. Both of those seem to be very positive experiences for you and supportive. Did you have any other individuals, whether it be friends or adults, that were also helpful to you, or perhaps a pastor if you were involved in religion?
Yeah, I didn't really get super involved in any kind of religion as I was growing up. My sister was baptized Lutheran as she grew up, but my parents never did that with me. They just let me go on my own and do whatever I would like to do. There was literally no guidance. It was just me on my own. And I ended up going to a lot of different places. I went to like a Mormon church. I went to a Lutheran church, Methodist, Baptist, Presbyterian, Catholic. I mean, you name it. I went in and out of many different churches looking for, something. I had spent some time with friends who were Jewish and were practicing Judaism. I was exposed to a little bit of Muslim teachings. At one point, I didn't even know anything about Buddhism until I was in my late 20s. I didn't even know anything called Buddhism actually even existed until then. So growing up, I didn't really have any mentors, but there were definitely teachers, a few teachers here and there that really, kind of took a liking to me and were kind of like, they could tell that I was having a turbulent life and they were trying to help me little by little here and there. I had different teachers that were influential at different times, but nothing real significant. It was really my grandparents that was the ones who were there to help me the most.
Did you have any trouble with schooling in that you had any learning difficulties, or was it more the influence when the problems that you were having at home that gave you trouble at school?
Yeah, at first, the school system was trying to tell my family that I had learning disability, and that's what they were telling them. But actually, what it was is I was just bored. I didn't think school was very challenging at all. So once they started telling my family that I had learning difficulties, they started giving me all these tests, and I started passing the tests like really quick and really easy because I just wasn't motivated to like participate in school. So when I went to school, I thought it was boring. I thought it was a waste of time. They were just giving us worksheets. They weren't really challenging us. They weren't really involving us to think and do critical thinking. So I would just goof off in class. I would just make jokes and, all kinds of silly stuff. I was the class clown. I was always in the principal's office. I was in detention constantly. People in school knew me for all the wrong reasons. I was quite popular in school for all the wrong reasons. People knew I was a troublemaker. So there was just nonstop problem after problem after problem growing up. And, schooling was just, a waste of time the way that I saw it until I got to college. When I was in college or university, I really enjoyed that. I thought that was really worthwhile. It was really meaningful. The professors treated you with respect. You were being responsible for your assignments. And I really felt like I was actually actively learning for the first time. Now, high school and other grades could have been like that, but I just didn't perceive it that way because that's not how I was approaching it. Because of all the turbulent things that were going on in the home, my schooling was very turbulent too. So I didn't have the wisdom and the understanding of how to study and how to learn. So even when I started college at the age of 17, because I hadn't completed all my grades, I was a little bit behind. So I had to take like one semester of catch-up classes because my reading and my writing wasn't, good enough to be able to enter into the full-scale college classes. So I was like taking kind of like makeup classes for my first semester in college to be able to get up to the level of being able to, participate in an actual college class for a significant amount of credits.
So college seems to have been a bit of a turning point for you as far as feeling maybe a little more in control of your life and things going a little bit more your way. You've alluded to in the past starting to form better friendships at that time with different types of people. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, college was outstanding for me because I felt like I was responsible for my own destiny and where I was headed. Where as a child living at home, you're bombarded with things from your parents and the other people around you, where I felt like I had kind of broken out of my shell when I got to college because I was living on campus about 2.5, 3 hours away from home. So I was able to just kind of plot my own, course in life, where prior to that, I felt like I was being bombarded by what everybody else wanted me to do. But by the time I got to college, I was able to pick my own classes. I was able to make my own schedule. I was able to do so many things. I had my own transportation and, I was really kind of coming out of my shell at that point. And what really helped with that is that at the age of 17, I started spending time around Asian people without really making kind of like a concerted effort. Looking back, what I started doing is spending time with a lot of people from Asia. I was spending time with Filipinos and Indonesian people, Chinese people, Vietnamese, Korean, you name it, any Asian country. It just happened that I started spending time with these people. And I really opened my eyes up to things that I hadn't seen before, where my home was very turbulent, very a lot of hostility and aggression, a lot of bitterness and yelling and hollering and screaming. When I spent time with my friends who were Asian, they were very polite, very respectful to their parents. They were working as a family unit to accomplish a certain goal as a family. And this was like really different for me. Like I hadn't seen that before. Like in our home, everybody was fighting each other. I mean, literally, physically, verbally, and so forth. It was just lots of fighting. And I didn't see that in the Asian households. And I was more and more interested in that. So I just ended up getting into the Asian community and started spending more and more time with Asian people. And I like I said, I didn't make a concerted effort. I wasn't like shunning people that were of other ethnicities. It's just that I gravitated towards the people that were doing positive and wholesome things and things that I aspired for. Because as we talked this morning, I can remember as early as 8 years old, sitting in my room, crying and having been beat one of many times. And I was just crying and I couldn't understand why I had so much love in my heart, and I had love for other people, but I wasn't receiving that love. I didn't understand why I was being hit and beat so much, because I knew at a certain level that I wasn't causing the people's anger, that they were so angry about the things that I was doing. I knew at a certain level that it wasn't me that was causing their anger, but I didn't understand the wisdom behind it. But I had all this love in my heart, and I was interested in sharing that with people, but my family wasn't capable of receiving that love. And I didn't understand why I was getting bombarded with all this hostility and bitterness and harshness. So when I started spending time around Asian people, they appreciated the care that I had for them as human beings. And then I saw that care and that love coming back to me as well in the way that they treated me as well. So I started spending time with a lot of Asian people. And even when I got into college, I was still spending time with Asian people as well. And I had a girlfriend, a long-term girlfriend from Indonesia, that we were together for 8 years, and she lived in the US. And I would go home pretty much every weekend from college and spend time with her. When she went away to college, because she was younger than me, I would go see her like every 3 weeks. But I would essentially be spending time with people from Asia. I had friends that were from America and places like that, but it was predominantly people from Asia where I was really influenced into seeing a glimpse of a type of life that I always aspired to have, and that peacefulness that I always aspired to have, but I didn't know how to accomplish it. But I saw it, kind of a glimmer of it, in the homes that I was spending time with my friends.
Were you at that time introduced to Buddhism by your friends, or did you just learn more by example and by their behavior?
I was never introduced to Buddhism. Nobody ever said, okay, David, sit down. Here's Buddhism. You got to convert to Buddhism now, or else you can't be our friend, kind of thing. There was none of that. It was just that by the 2001, when I was 27 years old, I had met a Thai person, because all my Vietnamese friends and other Asian friends, they used to always tell me, they said, if you ever meet someone from Thailand, you're going to really enjoy Thailand. You should go to Thailand someday. This place is like really excellent. We know you and we know Thailand. You will absolutely adore Thailand. And at that time, I didn't even know what Thailand was. I thought they were mispronouncing Taiwan. So I was like, do you mean Taiwan? Like, what are you talking about? They're like, no, Thailand. Like, you should check out Thailand. You're going to really like that place. And I didn't even know what they were talking about. So about maybe 6 months after that, I had met a Thai person from Thailand. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's a real place, because here's somebody from Thailand. This person is from Thailand. So we met and we spent time together. I ended up marrying this woman. This was my first wife. And we came to Thailand in December of 2002. And prior to coming to Thailand, we had made plans to get married in Thailand as well. And I knew it would be important for her parents to see her get married. So I suggested to her that we get married in the US, and then we go to Thailand and get married as well. So she liked that plan. And when we were preparing for the wedding, I didn't know anything about what a Thai wedding was like at that time. So, she was like, oh yeah, there's going to be some Buddhist monks there. And I was like, oh, okay, well, what's that all about? She's like, you'll see when you get there. So like, I really didn't know. And that was my first kind of exposure to Buddhism, is sitting in the middle of a village that hadn't seen a white person for 20 years. Like literally when I walked through the village, they were like touching my hand and running their hands through my hair. They were like looking at me. It was like a celebrity or something. They wanted to touch me and be near me, because they hadn't seen a white person in that village for like 20 years. And I was in the middle of this ceremony of a wedding, essentially, that was my wedding. And there was all these Thai people around looking at me, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was just sitting there in the middle of this village. And that was my first entrance into like understanding anything about Buddhism, was being in that particular event, and even knowing that there was something called Buddhism.
Well, thank you for that background. I see we have some written messages, and then maybe also open up to people who want to raise their hand, or also on YouTube and Facebook.
Sure. Should I go ahead and read this question here, or would you like to do that, Samantha?
I can do it.
Okay.
I think, yes. So Julie is first, and she asks, how did you become a Buddhist? And what do you think of the difference between Buddhism and other religions?
Okay. So I don't actually consider myself a Buddhist. And this may come as a surprise to some people. You know, the Buddha wasn't Buddhist either, right? That's a term that came much later. So one of the things that the Buddha teaches is to drop all these labels, that there are certain labels that the mind adopts, like I am Buddhist, or I am American, or any of this I am around your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. You guys are going to learn about this in about 2 weeks from now when I teach you the universal truth of non-self. So I actually don't consider myself a Buddhist. And I suggest that you don't either, that what you're doing is you're embarking on this journey to gain wisdom about the path to enlightenment, to gain wisdom about these natural laws. And you're studying the words of the Buddha to be able to do that, but you don't have to adopt this label of I am Buddhist. So there was never a time where someone said like, hey, would you like to convert to Buddhism? Or anything like that. Never. And I spend a lot of time around monks and temples and stuff like this. And there was never any Thai person or anybody that ever said that to me. There were plenty of Americans who asked me, you know, so are you Buddhist now? Right? Because like prior to that, I ultimately in my kind of like around 19 years old, I was baptized Catholic based on my choice. I decided to get baptized as Catholic. And people kind of understood that David probably had a Christian background from living in America. So a lot of Americans would ask me, like, are you Buddhist now? Have you converted from, you know, being Christian to Buddhist? And I just kind of looked at them kind of like not understanding because there was no such thing as converting to Buddhism. But, you know, other people might consider me Buddhist, but I don't think of it that way. I think about it that I'm sharing this better way of life that the Buddha taught. In terms of the difference between what the Buddha taught and other traditions or religions teach, to me, it's vastly different. When I went into the various churches and places that I visited, what I heard a lot about was belief, that there was a lot of belief. And there was even some places that I would go to and be considering whether to join this congregation or not. They would sit me down in a church pew and they would say, these are all the things that we believe. And they would list them all out. And they would say, if you believe in these things too, you can join us. And you're going to need to do all these things like right now. And I was like, whoa, right? So there was like all these beliefs. And I never understood like there was a practice side to all of this because Jesus actually taught a practice. He taught how to be loving and warm and kind and gentle. But to me, what I see is I see a lot of religions in the world that are doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. They might have rules or commandments. They might have one person at the top who's kind of telling everybody else what to do. And if that's the way you consider religion, the teachings of the Buddha aren't a religion because there isn't one person at the top. There aren't any rules or commandments. There isn't any rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. And even though if you've seen these things attributed to the Buddha, those aren't actually the Buddha's teachings. And by the time you dive into his teachings, you'll be able to see that. So while I have exposure to all the different flavors of Christianity, while I've had some exposure to Hinduism, some exposure to Judaism, some exposure to Islam teachings, Muslim teachings, I wouldn't say that I know any of those things in depth. You know, I know Christian teachings probably much better than Hindu and Muslim teachings. But when I look at the teachings of the Buddha, I don't think there's anything out there that's even remotely similar, including modern psychology, because some people relate the teachings of the Buddha to psychology, because what he did is he took the human psychology and he boiled it down into like a very common understanding so that you can understand your mind and you can transform your mind. And the unique thing about the teachings of the Buddha is that you're learning, examining, and investigating his teachings now in this life. You are reflecting on those teachings now to independently verify them, and you're practicing them now. And because of that, you see the results now, where mostly what you see in the world is believe, 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 and then hope something good happens when you die. And that's not what the teachings of the Buddha are. And I think that that's so magnificent about his teachings that you can know in this life whether or not you're on the right path or not. That if you just believe a bunch of things, when you die, that's when you're going to find out whether your beliefs were correct or not. And it's too late at that point, right? So by learning, reflecting, and practicing now and seeing the results now to the condition of your mind, that makes the teachings of the Buddha like standalone, kind of by itself, in my opinion, where you can ultimately get to this peaceful and joyful mental state. And you can see that that's actually occurring the more that you're learning and practicing his teachings.
Alberto writes, Martha is asking, Teacher David, why do you think you were born into a dysfunctional family?
This is my karma from my previous lives. Wherever you're born into a family based on what you've done in your previous lives. I will share that I wouldn't change anything about my childhood, honestly, as turbulent as it was and as difficult as it was. I wouldn't change anything about all that, stuff that I did as a juvenile delinquent, all those difficulties and struggles I had all through my life, because that led me deeper and deeper into seeking the answers and trying to figure out how to solve this problem that I've had, which you guys might have that problem too, which is a discontent mind. Had it not been for all those difficulties and struggles, I wouldn't have the direct experience that I have now to be able to relate to so many people and the struggles and challenges that they experience on a day-to-day basis. And I would say that the first 45 years of my life was like research to be able to do what I'm doing now, because I know that I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. And had it not been for all those mistakes and missteps that I made, and being able to see the actual natural law of karma really tangibly up close and personal, I wouldn't be able to describe it in such detail that I see it today. So even though the family that I was born into was from my karma, or the results of my decisions from my previous lives, and it was very turbulent, that was exactly what I needed to be able to do what I'm doing today and be able to experience what I'm experiencing today.
Chu N says, hello, Teacher David. What is your experience letting go of the first fetter, sensual pleasure? I think you mentioned about sexual contact being your strongest in the morning session. Mine is in materialism, like chasing for luxurious holidays, alcohol, delicious food, buying branded products, and living a luxurious lifestyle in general. Was there anything in particular that happened in your years of practicing Buddhism, or was it just that you concluded that the chasing such material enjoyment is never permanent and the next downturn is just around the corner? You then simply stop chasing or craving for such things and be interested in the permanent joy that is non-conditioned?
Sure. So when I came to Thailand the first time in 2027, by that time I had a decent amount of money. I wasn't rich by any means of the imagination. I still am not rich. That's not my goal in this life. But I had a decent amount of money. I had property. I had investments. At that time I was already driving a BMW. I had some decent lifestyle. Even when I graduated college and I started working, I was living the lifestyle of about $300,000-$500,000 a year, because I was working for a computer software company that basically was lavishing us with all kinds of expense accounts and ability to buy things and live a very luxurious lifestyle. So I had experienced all that luxury by the time I had gotten to Thailand in 2002. And everything that I was always taught was that wealth and these material objects was going to lead to happiness. So that's what I was chasing early in my life. But when I got here to Thailand, I noticed that the Thai people were not having those same things that I had, but they had something I didn't have. They had peacefulness, they had joy, they had happiness. I had all the material objects, but I didn't have the happiness and the peace and the joy. They didn't have the material objects, because the place that I was at, the village that I was at, like the places that I was staying, they didn't even have air conditioning. It was just like a little shack with like boards, like the mosquitoes were coming in, and it was an open house, and there was dirt roads, and people were just living in little shacks, essentially is what we would call them. But when I went around the village, like people were just so happy. They were smiling, they were polite, they were respectful, they were helping each other. And this like boggled my mind. Like I didn't understand it. I was like, these people have next to nothing and they're so happy and peaceful. And I've got all this material wealth and I'm not happy. Like, what gives? Like, why is this? So I became very intrigued with Thai people and why it is that they function the way they did and or the way they do. And I went on this journey to try to figure this out. And that took me into Thai massage and opening my own business and teaching Thai massage and dabbling in Buddhism and all these things. It took me about 16 years to figure it out, but I realized that it was because of Buddhism. That the way Thailand works is like the leaves on the tree are like the food, the fabrics, the music, the dancing, all the different things you see, the Thai massage. There's all these leaves that are kind of attracting people to Thailand. But then when you follow the branches down to the trunk of the tree, that's like the Thai culture, and it's a unique blend of certain cultural things. But then when you look deeper into the roots of this tree, it all goes back to Buddhism. But I didn't understand that when I first came here in 2002. I just saw they're happy with no material objects. I am not happy without material objects. Why is this? And I just went on this journey to figure this out. No part of that journey would I would have told you that that's what I was doing, but that's exactly what I was doing. And by the time that I left the USA, I was making, from my pocket, I was making about $500,000 a year. My company was making about $1 million a year. I just closed that and came here to Thailand and I opened up a new company. And that company in a relatively short period of time was making about $600,000 to $800,000 a year. So there was easily to make wealth and make money. And when I was living here for those first 3 years, from 2015 to 2018, I had a pretty luxurious life. I was living, really well with material objects, and I had everything that what might have been told that would lead to happiness. But I noticed I still wasn't happy, and I didn't have the happiness. I didn't have the peacefulness, even though I'd built my life up to have all these material objects. So eventually I got to a point where I shed all of that, and I was just interested in just getting to the peace and getting to the joy. And that's what drove me towards the teachings of the Buddha, is realizing that I had all those material objects. It didn't lead to peacefulness. So that's not the truth. There's got to be something else out there. And at that time, I was also seeing how difficult the world was in, how difficult of a period the world was in. In 2015, 2018, I opened up a private investigation company where we were investigating people. It's very unwise to open this, especially in Thailand. We ran into all kinds of problems doing this. But nonetheless, I saw how difficult the world was in. Primarily, I had contracts on my head to kill me, and people were coming at me, trying to kill me, actively trying to kill me. I had a team of bodyguards that were following me around. When I went out to a restaurant, I couldn't even go to the bathroom without a bodyguard coming with me into the bathroom. It was horrible. But at that time, I was like, wow, look at me, look at all this life, look at what I've got. But I saw how dark the world really was, that it's possible for people to go out and hire somebody to kill you. And I had to defend myself, but I was making a bunch of unwise decisions that led to that type of actions happening to me in my life. But once I saw how, difficult the world was and how difficult my life had become, I was interested in getting away from that life and cleaning up the decisions that I was making. And that's what really drove me towards creating a better way of life for myself.
So I think the next question from Chris kind of leads into what you were saying. So he asks, how did you begin engaging with the Buddha's teaching, and did this change over time?
Yeah, so I started when I was teaching Thai massage, because when I came here to Thailand, the first time in 2002, I didn't have any exposure to Buddhism other than just kind of like seeing it around and participating in ceremonies and stuff, which aren't actually the teachings of the Buddha anyway. But I just kind of got exposure to the Thai people. I brought this Thai massage back to the USA, and within a short period of time, people started asking me to teach Thai massage because there wasn't really anybody doing it much. And just because I'd been doing it for even 6 months, people started like, hey, teach us, teach us, teach us. So it took me about 2 years to decide to actually teach. But when I decided to start teaching Thai massage, I knew enough that Thai massage, I couldn't just rip it out of Thailand and just teach it as a modality and as body work. So rather than just teach the modality and the manual, manipulation of the body work for Thai massage, I would teach Thai massage, Thai culture, and Buddhism together so that the students were signing up for a Thai massage class, but they were getting all this education on Thai culture and Thai Buddhism, which is where, the Thai massage kind of spawned out of. So I had to dabble with Buddhism in order to be able to just put together a few things for the students to be able to learn. I wasn't teaching the path to enlightenment, but I was just kind of teaching a little bit about Buddhism. And the more that I was teaching Thai massage and Buddhism, the more curious the students were about Buddhism. And they kept asking more and more questions about Buddhism. And it drove me deeper and deeper to be able to understand it. And I was more and more interested in it too. I started getting bored of teaching Thai massage because it was like the same thing. It was just, demonstrating massage, and it wasn't really solving people's real problem. It was helping them with their body, but if they weren't working on their mind, they weren't actually solving the underlying problem. Because there could be somebody that comes to me with all kinds of problems with their body. I could fix it over a number of months or weeks, and then they would go away, and then they would come back 3 months later or 6 months later with the exact same problem because they hadn't solved the problem in their mind, because their mind was what was driving them to use the body in that particular way. So it was gradual, Chris, that I gradually kind of moved deeper and deeper into Buddhism. But it was when I moved to Thailand that's where like the eyes really opened up, because even though I was in the USA, I was living a very Thai life. About half of my employees were Thai. I was around Thai things. I was teaching Thai things. I was eating Thai food. I had my Thai wife. I was going around monks all the time. They were coming to see me. I was living a very Thai lifestyle from America. But living in Thailand and being surrounded by Thai people was very different than living in the USA, kind of dabbling in this stuff. So gradually I started learning. But by the year 2018, that's where I felt like, okay, I understand this, and now I need to figure out a way to bring it to the world. I felt like I had rediscovered the teachings of the Buddha. It was like discovering the cure to cancer, and I was interested in getting it in anybody's hands that was interested in learning about it. So I started trying to figure out ways of getting these teachings into people's hands. And in 2018, that's where I really started to put the pen to paper, so to speak, and started writing books and having some classes and stuff like that. That was solely about Buddhism.
Okay, Teacher David, we have a couple of raised hands in Zoom. I think Marcy's been waiting.
Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Teacher David. It's lovely to see everyone today. Teacher David, in that moment when you decided, from the perpetuated questions from your students about Buddhism, and you decided, okay, I'm going to dig into this and I'm going to do this, did you have anyone that guided you? Did you have anyone that kind of showed you, some of the teachings?
No, by that time I was living in Thailand, and there isn't anybody here that knows the teachings of the Buddha close enough and can speak English that was able to guide me. And I knew that I could figure this out by myself because of the memories that I had from previous lives to be able to apply, and then also the memories I had from this life to be able to apply in order to be able to train my mind. So what I had actually these books. These are a bunch of books that I have with the words of the Buddha. I've got books like this, really big, thick ones that are like in English. But the thing is that these English translations weren't the most accurate, because I understood what the teachings were, because I was training my mind and I knew what the Buddha had taught based on my memories from previous lives in this life as well. So when I read the translations, I knew they weren't accurate, and they were using, in some cases, very old, archaic English language. So I needed to update the word choices. So that was part of the work that I did in creating this book series, is putting it together in a way that it would people would be able to understand the Buddha's teachings today. So for example, you've heard me teach, Marcy, where I don't use the word suffering because it's not the appropriate word. I use the word discontentedness. And there's a whole bunch of other words like that. There was probably like 150 to 200 different words that I could see that people were misunderstanding what the Buddha taught. And in some cases, some of these books, they have multiple translators. So one translator was using one word, another translator was using another word, and different translators were using different words. And it didn't read as all one body of work. So it was very confusing for somebody to sit down and actually understand. My initial students, some of the people who were learning with me initially, they were actually retired English teachers, and they had taught English their entire career. And when I shared some of these books with them, even they were having difficulties to understand what the Buddha was teaching in these books. So when I started to decide to update it, the teachings of the Buddha were my teacher, right? The Buddha was my teacher, essentially, but he wasn't alive during this life, but I understood enough of the teachings that I was able to train my mind with what I had understood from this life and previous lives.
So basically the way you confirmed the understanding of the teachings was by training your own mind to what you understood the teachings to be.
Yeah, there was a point in time in 2018 where it was like a light switch had flipped. It was like August 9th, August 10th of 2018. And it was like somebody had flipped a switch in my mind. And I went from just kind of like, just having a regular unenlightened mind to the mind had experienced this switch. There was like this magical switch that happened in my mind. And for about a week or two, I actually thought I was enlightened at that time because everything was so peaceful, everything was so joyful, everything was so bright and cheerful and wonderful. But that actually slowly faded away. And I ended up having a mind that was highly discontent with no reprieve whatsoever. Where what you guys experience is you guys experience getting angry and frustrated, but then it kind of goes away, right? And then you get, annoyed and lonely, and then it kind of goes away. Where my mind had like every single day, every single moment, from the time I woke up until the time I went to sleep, my mind was highly discontent. And I needed to find a solution of how to fix it. And my wife handed me these books. She's like, here, I bought these books for you. Like at that time, I think it was 9 years ago. She bought them in 2009. She's like, I bought these books for you. And now seems like the time that you're ready to use them. And I said, oh, really? What are they? She's like, they're the words of the Buddha. And I was like, okay, let me see. And I started looking at them. I was like, oh my goodness, this is his words. Because I had looked at other books. I hadn't really read them, but I had looked at other books, just a couple pages, but I put them down. This was like many years ago before I even knew my current wife. But I put it down because I knew it wasn't the teachings of the Buddha. I could tell it was not his words. But when I picked up these books, it was like talking to a best friend, a long lost best friend. And like I would know what he was going to teach before I read it. As I was reading the book, I would already know what the next paragraph was going to say before I actually even read it. So I knew what the teachings were. And when I was reading the books weren't reflecting what the teachings were. And I needed to use his teachings in order to fix my own mind. And then having done so, I needed to document it in a way that others could benefit from that work that I had to do.
Thank you so much, Teacher David, for all your work.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think Ted has a question.
Hi, it's Kristen. Thank you, Teacher David. My question was also Marcy's. Like, did you have a teacher, and how did you come to meet? But was there anyone that had sort of, once you got on the path and studied the words of the Buddha, was there anyone that you worked with to kind of help you discern some of what you were learning and experiencing, or was it just the readings so that's one question.
No, I really use the world as my teacher. Like I would read the teachings of the Buddha, and then I would look around the world and try to independently verify them. And I would observe Thai people, and I would observe them doing things. So like I would see like the Thai people practicing a lot of generosity. And I would be like, man, why are they practicing generosity so much? How does this fit in to the teachings of the Buddha? What is this about? And then, I started practicing generosity, and I was already practicing generosity before that, but I started practicing it and I started observing what it was doing for my mind. And I was like, this is helping eliminate those cravings. I see what this stuff is for now. So I used the words of the Buddha. I looked around the world to independently verify it. And I observed the Thai people of what they were doing just through observation, just through watching them. And then I had memories from this life, countless memories, and then from previous lives as well, that I was able to put that wisdom together to be able to accomplish what I needed to accomplish with my own mind in sharing these teachings.
Awesome. Okay, can I ask a couple more questions?
Sure. I think we're just having an open session, just an open discussion.
I just want to make sure other people have time. So how long did it take you to write your 13 volumes?
So the first book, I didn't know it was going to be a book. I started writing it in 2018. I just put together some Four Noble Truths things because my wife was teaching some students Thai massage. And I was like, well, if you're going to teach them Thai massage, maybe you'd be interested in teaching the Four Noble Truths. So I started writing some things about the Four Noble Truths. It's created a book. I don't have it around anymore. It was the first book. And I used that book for about 1.5 years, 2 years. And that was like my preliminary book that I used just to kind of feel out how to explain the teachings to the students. So the first 1.5 years, 2 years, I was just trying to figure out what's the right words. Because I understood the teachings myself, but I needed to communicate it to others in some way. Because understanding the teachings yourself and communicating it to someone else is two different things. So I used this first book as a way to kind of test what were the right words. And then after about 1.5 years, 2 years of seeing what was working, what wasn't working, I updated that book to what we've got now, which is this first volume. So you could say that this took me about 3 years to get to where this book is here. But the other 12 books, it took me 1 year to be able to write all the other 12 books. I spent 5 months just scanning these books, like all these books like this. I would sit here at this very desk with my mobile phone, and I would take a picture of each page. And some of these books are like 900 pages. And I would sit here and take a picture of each individual page. And then I ran what's called OCR, optical character recognition, on it, where it would take it from the photo and it would extract the text and it would put it into a text file. And then I would take the text file and then I'd put it into the computer and I would format it and get it looking the way it needed to look for these books. So it took me a year to write the remaining 12 books. And all of this was going on during COVID period, where I was teaching online, kind of feeling out the right words, also putting the books together. And then at the same time, I was also working 12 hours a week doing personal training. I was teaching people how to exercise. I know a lot of people have a hard time thinking that that's true with my stomach and everything, but I have certificates to independently verify this. You can see that I actually used to help people exercise, but I was making just a little bit of money, like 12, maybe like $400 just to kind of like help me to pay for food and stuff like that. But all the while I was developing the books, developing the courses, developing the programs, developing the visual aids. So I would spend, like 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day doing personal training. And then I would spend like 12 hours a day working on the curriculum that you guys are now learning throughout all the various programs.
Okay. One last question. How did you end up at Wat Thong Yu?
I was invited there. I was teaching at another temple called Wat Chedi Luang, which is a large temple in the middle of Chiang Mai, and it's a well-known temple here. And I was just kind of teaching tourists as they walked by. They would sit down and talk with me, have a 30-minute chat here, a 1-hour chat there. And there was a gentleman who was there at that temple who also spent time at Wat Thong Yu. And he invited me to come to Wat Thong Yu. And I went over there, and I was doing essentially the same thing over there, talking with tourists and helping tourists. And I was doing that for about 3 years. And the monks at that temple were kind of observing what I was doing. I didn't know that this is what they were doing, but they were observing me and just kind of watching me and see how I did things. And then after a period of time, I started holding classes at Wat Thong Yu in the main building. And there were so many people that were coming that it was blocking the entrance, and the Thai people couldn't get in. and they wanted to come in and bow to the statues. So they went to the head monk and they said, hey, there's this foreigner in there teaching, and we can't get in to bow to the Buddha statues. So the head monk asked me to move to a different building. And we moved to a different building. And on the first day of classes, we outgrew that building. And I went to him and with my wife and my son, and I said, hey, thank you so much for this new building, and I really appreciate this. And, I see the fans aren't working. I would like to hire somebody to fix the fans and stuff like this. Would you be okay with that? And he's like, yeah, sure, you can fix the fans. And I said, well, just so you know, we've actually already outgrown that building. I might need to come back to you and get another place. If you have a different place for me to teach, that'd be wonderful, because we've already outgrown this one. And he said, oh, I have a place for you right now. And I was like, well, I wasn't going to ask you now, but if you would like to show it to me now, like, sure, I'll take a look. So we went and took a look, and that's the classroom that we teach in now. But of course, it didn't look the way it looks now, that it was really run down and old and beat up. But students have contributed to revitalizing and remodeling that space. So now we've got a really beautiful classroom. But it was all by invitation. And, by me practicing the teachings, the Thai people feel very comfortable having me around, because I can navigate their culture effortlessly, because I've been around Asian people for the last 33 years. The last 33 years I've been around Asian people, and I've been around Thai people for over 22, 23 years. So I'm very comfortable around Thai people and Asian people, and foreigners too, Americans, anybody. I'm comfortable around everybody, but I can navigate Thai society very easily because I understand their language and their culture and their traditions and all these things.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And thank you for teaching all of us. You changed my life. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Pleased to help you.
Teacher David, we still have hands in Zoom, as well as some written questions. I didn't know if you needed to take a peek online at YouTube and Facebook, or if you want to continue on with Zoom.
Yeah, we do have a bunch coming in on YouTube and Facebook as well. I can read these if you like.
I can't see them.
Okay. So Rob is saying, hi, David. Sorry, I can't get on video to ask these questions as I'm currently rooming with my in-laws. But here are some I have. You mentioned in a previous interview that when you traveled alone to Thailand, you saw the bad side of it. What did you mean by this? Do you happen to have any other stories? Oh, okay. So the bad side, when I first came to Thailand and all the way up until 2015, I never saw the dark side of Thailand. I had only ever saw the wonderful side of Thailand, because that's all my wife ever exposed me to, and that's all I ever saw. But in 2015, me and my wife separated for a period of time, and I went away from her for a couple of years, and I saw the dark side of Thailand. And I was very surprised by this, because I didn't think that Thailand had a dark side. But of course, everywhere has a dark side. I just didn't understand it. So I dabbled in this dark side through the company that I created that was a private investigation company. The mafia was coming around. We were in and out of bars and strip clubs and, you name it. You can imagine what a private investigator is going to go through. We were doing all kinds of things, the sex trade and all that kind of stuff. You're asking more here. You said, do you happen to have any other stories that reinforce your belief that God exists besides the butterfly one with your wife? I don't actually believe in God at all. I know that this being exists with 100% certainty, because this being showed up in my life multiple times, showing me different things to confirm his existence. And as you know, you might have heard me share that the teachings of the Buddha aren't based on God. God's not a central focal point in his teachings, because you can get to enlightenment with a relationship with God or without one. You're not required to have a relationship with God. But I know that this being exists from that butterfly story that I share with you, and countless other things. One time I was at a temple, and there was a picture of the Buddha on the wall, the one that I use. And I was sitting in a chair. And it was like these two beams of light came out from the eyes of the Buddha and hit me in my eyes, and it pushed me back in the chair. and it was like balancing on the two back legs of the chair, and I was just kind of balancing there as these rays were like shooting into my eyes. One time I was here in the village, and there was two gentlemen who moved in across the street, and we were chatting, and I was getting ready to say something that was very unwise and very unwholesome. And God took my lips and he squeezed them tight, and he pushed my head around and kind of like spun me around. And these guys like looked at me like, what just happened? And I just like, moved on because I knew what had happened. And there were other things like this where prior to all these things happening, I didn't believe in God. Even though I grew up in exposure to Christian teachings and I was baptized Catholic, I had gotten to the point where I didn't think God existed. And then when all these things and others started happening, this is how I knew this being existed with 100% certainty, because there was no other being on the face of this earth or in this world that would be able to do the things that happened to me during these situations. And as you guys know, that when I teach you in ways that you can independently verify things. These things that I'm sharing with you now, you can't independently verify these because they happened when I was there. And you weren't there when that happened. And I realized that. I don't suggest you ever believe any of these kinds of things, but if you ever start experiencing any of these kinds of things, you'll know for yourself. But just understand that I don't usually teach these things. I only share these things when people ask them of me. I don't go around and like blab about all these miracles that occurred, because there was these and there was others as well. I don't feel a need to go out into the world and convince people that God exists and telling them all of these stories of things that I experienced. But I know with 100% certainty that this being exists without a doubt. But you don't have to know that in order to be able to get to enlightenment. And that's the beauty about this path. But this being needed me to know that it existed. And previously in my life, probably in my early 20s, I had begged and pleaded with God to show me some evidence that he existed. And I never got that. But about 20 years later, when I was in my mid 40s, I got a slew of evidence that this being actually exists. So that was some things there for you, Robert. Are there any more specific things you believe are not true that the Buddha said or that you've read from the Pali Canon? One example you mentioned in class is that the Buddha's birth story with supernatural powers might have been embellished, or the snake guarding the temple entrances might have not existed. Could you go into detail some of the... Oh, okay, that's some different one. There's the vast majority of what you see in the Pali Canon is true. There's just very rare things that I know that aren't actually true. And we can understand that because of impermanence, that things have changed. But to go through and kind of chronologically list those would be, pretty detailed, Robert. I think we can do that on a one-on-one basis if you ever would like to do that. Robert asked, could you go into detail some of the crimes you have committed? For example, stealing a car. Just curious to know your backstory. Yes, I stole a car a few times. I broke into a house one time. I used to sell a little bit of drugs, dabbling with that. I used to get in lots of fights, things like this. Used drugs and alcohol. Drove underage, drove drunk, but I never got caught for all of these things. I only got caught for, out of every maybe 20 crimes that I committed, I only ever got caught for maybe one of those. And then I committed another 20, and then I got caught for one of those, right? So I was doing all those kinds of things, lots of fighting, things like that. Yi Hung is asking here on YouTube. Let me just move this over here. Yi Hung is asking, hello, Teacher David. Thank you for hosting this event. I would like to ask, what would be your advice to someone who experiences heartbeat going fast from time to time out of nowhere? This is the bodily sensations associated with your discontentedness arising and craving, desire, attachment in the mind. So you're going to need to keep training with the Eightfold Path and try to clue into what it is that your mind's thinking about during that time, because, or whatever contact you're having through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, or the body, because it's one of the six sense bases, either the mind or one of those other six sense bases that you're having contact through. And now your mind's got a craving that sees it as either agreeable or disagreeable. And then now there's these bodily sensations that are arising. So you got to figure out what the cravings are and then eliminate those cravings so that you don't experience that any longer. There's once you said you recognized your grandmother in this life as your mother in a previous life. Would it be okay for you to explain what insight did you get to discover, see this? Thank you. I think at this point is probably not a good idea for me to explain that. I think that might be a little bit too far for you guys to understand my previous lives and stuff like that. I'll maybe share that at some point in the future, but I thank you for your question, Yihang. But I think if I explain it, you guys, it might just be a little bit too far for you guys to be able to understand it at this point. There's something here in Facebook too, Samantha, from Amina. She says, "Good day, Teacher David. Once you started living in Thailand, how long did it take you to know you have found the best home for your life and practice? What were some of the most memorable moments?" It was in 2018 that I realized that this was going to be the place that I live for the rest of my life. When I first moved here in 2015, not too long after that, somebody asked me, "Why did you move to Thailand?" And I said, "I moved here to die." And that person said, "Well, that's probably exactly what you're going to do then is die." That's why I moved to Thailand, that I knew that this was going to be my last place. In fact, I told everybody in the US that if you guys would like to come see me before I leave. I gave them like a 2-year, 1 year, 6 month, 3 month, 2 week countdown kind of thing. Because I wasn't interested in going back to the US for anything. I let them know that I wasn't coming back for graduations, babies being born, marriages, funerals. I told my mom, my grandmother, everybody, I was like, I'm not even going to come back for funerals because, why am I just going to come back and see your body? I can see you now before I leave. I don't need to come back to see your body, because I was going back and forth about 3 to 5 times a year between the US and Thailand. And I was tired of doing that. And I was interested in just getting here and being here. So that's what I decided to do. Some of the most memorable moments in Thailand, there's just so many that, I can't even fathom to think. I mean, just learning so many things about Thailand and the Thai people, and the dark side of Thailand was very eye-opening. Understanding how Thai people do things, understanding things like sometimes people are confused. They'll see like, well, if Thailand's such a Buddhist country, why is like the sexual trade so predominant in the country? The way Thai people do things is they understand like, hey, legally, we're going to make this illegal, where like the sex trade is illegal. But we understand that people have cravings and they want to maybe have sex. And rather than someone going out and raping someone, why don't we let this kind of fly under the radar and kind of have this unwholesome thing over here on the side to allow people, whoever would like to dip their toe into that stuff, it's there for them if they would like to do it. And if they do it, they're going to experience the unwholesome results because of it. But nonetheless, at least it's there in order to satisfy someone's craving, so that you don't see very much rape in Thailand. It very rarely happens. So I'm not condoning these kinds of things. I'm not saying that these things are acceptable or this is the way to set up a society or anything like that. But coming to understand that Thailand does things very differently than the rest of the world, where some people are very judgmental of the Thai people. I have nothing but a high degree of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for them. So whenever I see anything going on in their society, I know that there's a reason why. And there's got to be some kind of underlying loving kindness or compassion or something about craving, desire, attachment. So I kind of peer into it and look at it through that window. So for example, abortion is illegal here in Thailand. But if you would like to get a termination of your pregnancy, there's places you can go to get one, right? So they have it set up that way, in my opinion, intentionally, so that it kind of says, this is how we feel about these things, and this is the way we think our society should be set up. But nonetheless, we know that there's going to be people that need these things, so let's make them available for people. So, there's, learning all these different things about Thailand and Thai society, and getting to the point where realizing that the Buddha actually lived and he was a real being, and this enlightenment is a real thing. That was really wide open eye-opening for me, because you grow up Christian in a Christian country, and a lot of people just kind of believing whether Jesus lived or not. They don't actually know, and to be able to have tangible proof that this individual lived, and actually be able to experience the quality of mind that he was talking about, this is going to be really eye-opening for you to be able to see these kinds of things. And that's everything, Samantha, that I'm seeing here.
Okay. Alicia has a question. She's had her hand up patiently for a while.
Hi, Teacher David.
Hello.
It's really nice to meet you again after 1 year. And yeah, as I mentioned before, I've stayed in Thailand for 1 year, and I've learned Buddhism with Teacher David for 3 months. And at that time, I really feel super peaceful and calm. I found a lot of things came from craving, desire, attachment. And I really understand that I don't need that much fame or money or a big title to feel happy. But after I left Thailand a year ago, I back to China and then to some other countries. And right now I'm in Belgium doing my master's. Honestly, I don't really enjoy it because I'm not the type of person who enjoy doing research. The reason why I'm doing this is because probably doing a master will open more doors in the future. Probably I'm gonna work in a university or start my business. So a diploma might help probably. So this is the reason why I'm doing this. But since I've learned a lot of Buddhism with David before, I realized that a lot of things comes from like craving, desire, attachment, and there is no self. But I still feel like more confused, like trying to practicing what I've learned in Buddhism into the real life. Because like the world is full of like trying to label you or let you chase some dreams, or if I didn't get a diploma, I cannot work in a university. So I found it's really difficult. Like what should I do? I feel really challenging, like doing my master's here. Is it because I'm chasing something that I don't want, or like the reason why I feel unhappy is because is all things coming from my cravings? Like I have no idea, like what this kind of complicated like confusion comes from. So I wonder if Teacher David, you have experienced this kind of stuff, like practicing the Buddhism before in your real life. I found it super difficult.
Yeah, all those things you're saying are true. That when you have craving, desire, attachment, your mind will be very confused, very muddled. It'll feel sometimes very congested and like you're hitting a brick wall. What everything comes back to, that is the number one problem that the Buddha discovered in the mind, is the lack of wisdom, the unknowing of true reality, or the ignorance. That's like the number one problem that he discovered. And that's the whole reason why craving exists in the mind, is because of the unknowing of true reality. And you learn that as you learn these teachings. So there's some wisdom that you need that you don't have, and that's what's making it difficult for you. And sure, there's cravings in there that are making it difficult as well. But if it wasn't for the lack of wisdom of your cravings, if it wasn't for the lack of wisdom of how to train your mind to eradicate the cravings, then you wouldn't have the cravings. So it ultimately comes back to the lack of wisdom. So that's why everything on the teachings of the Buddha, everything on this path is all about cultivation of wisdom. And that's why you're never interested in believing anything. You'd like to be able to see the truth for yourself. So it's through the cultivation of wisdom and training your mind that is going to eliminate the cravings and make life effortless for you. You need to say something, Alicia? Okay, 1 second. There you go. You can unmute. We have it set up where you have to unmute.
Thank you so much, David.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
I got it. I think I need to like train my mind more, probably.
Yeah, it always comes back to that. There's more training that needs to happen. And
so that's the reason why I came back.
Yeah, and it starts with the cultivation of wisdom. So you're in the right place. I'll help you.
Thank you so much. It means a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move on to Leo. I had seen before that he had his hand up for quite some time and put it down, and now it's back up again. So.
Just need to unmute yourself, Leo.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Samantha. Yes, I would like to understand, because you shared that your grandmother was really teaching you good moral conduct and was warm and friendly to you. And your mother is the daughter of your grandmother. So it's interesting for me why your mother was doing like the opposite of your grandmother. Does your grandmother didn't teach her how to be a good moral person? Yeah, this is just interesting for me how someone goes this wrong way with that parent.
Yeah,
and maybe another question I also would like to.
Let me answer the first one first, if you don't mind. You can have someone teaching in two different students, and those two different students have completely different results, right? Because it's the individual decisions that those people are making. So while my grandmother, I'm sure, taught my mom exactly the same things as she taught me, my mom chose not to go forward with those things, to not adopt that as wisdom and make those wise decisions. So it's not a function of what grandma did, it's a function of what mom did. Just like me as a teacher, I can teach 20 people, and a certain number of people might get to enlightenment and a certain number of people may not, because it's all based on the decisions of the individual, that the decisions that that person makes. So my grandmother was very loving and kind, and she taught all of us, grandkids, kids, many people. And also many of the lessons that I learned through life was through observing and observation. So one of the things the way I learn is by observing people. So I observed the warmth and the love and the kindness and the generosity, the equanimity, the compassion, all of this of my grandmother. And I learned through that. But that was a choice that I made to see those things and learn from it, where somebody else was right there too. And they could see how my grandmother was functioning, but they didn't choose to learn those lessons. So it's always the choice of the individual, not the teacher. It's your individual choices that are going to lead to any particular result.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Okay, then I also would like to, what would be interesting, because your dad, your real dad, left you quite early, I think. And have you met him later? And how was your meeting with him? How was your relationship then?
Yeah, we met when I was 20 years old. At that time, the internet didn't exist. So the way you would find somebody is you would go to the Department of Motor Vehicles and you would fill out a form, and you fill out whatever information you have about this person. And then they would contact that person and tell them that you were interested in talking to them. So my sister had filled this out, and it didn't take very long. And he contacted us and said, hey, you guys are looking for me. I'm interested in spending time with you. So by that point, my girlfriend had died. I was very sad. I was having very difficult life. And this was like a stranger. It was like somebody I didn't know before. I heard many stories from my mom and my grandmother about him. And I was trying to set that stuff aside as much as possible. But when I met him, it was like a stranger, like I'd never know this person before. I could tell that I looked like him, my appearance and my body structure and everything. I could tell that I looked like him. But there was never really a close relationship. He's still alive today. And, we're connected on Facebook, but, we don't talk. We don't have conversations because there just isn't any kind of history or any kind of relationship. I've let go of any kind of resentment or hostility that I had towards him for abandoning me when I was a kid. And, we're at a happy place, but we just don't have an ongoing, consistent relationship. But if he ever called me up and needed anything, I'd be more than willing to help him. If I ever called him up and said, hey, I need your help with this, he'd be willing to help me, I'm sure. But we just don't have a consistent, ongoing relationship.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think Ted has a question.
David, from one previous juvenile delinquent to another, I'd like to ask you a question in regards to, I can't help but feel, though your path resembles the path of a Buddha, which is self-taught, Obviously, he had no books to refer to or people along that same path. But and I'm not looking to put a label on you. I found it. I was curious about that, where you had found this way of living and thinking, basically on your own. And I don't even know if there's an answer to that but I just wanted to share my curiosity with you. And thank you very much for today, by the way.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, what people consider me to be is up to them. For me, I've discovered this better way of life. The Buddha taught it 2,500 years ago. I'm teaching it now, and it's a real path with real results. And for me, my ability to help people isn't dependent on what people consider me to be, or as you used the word, label me to be. I'm just a human being who has nothing but loving kindness and compassion for the entire world. And I would like to see countless people experience this enlightened mental state. And I'm going to spend the rest of this life bringing the teachings into the world as best as I can. And that's my dedication to seeing the world improve and become a better place. Because the heartache and misery that I experienced all throughout the first 45 years of my life, in training my mind to be where I am today, I'm not interested in anybody experiencing that. It was that miserable. If I can help, as they say, just one person, which at this point I've helped way more people than that. But if I could just help one person, it would be all worth it, right? So that's what motivates me. That's where my dedication comes from. It's kind of like I said, it's like discovering the cure to cancer and being interested in getting it in everybody's hands and giving it to them for free, because I just would like to see people live a wonderful, harmonious life. So that's why I'm so dedicated to do what I do on a daily basis. But my ability to help people isn't dependent on people labeling me as any particular thing. In fact, it's better if they don't, and they just look at me as just a average human being just like them, because then they can see that whatever David has overcome in his life, I can do the same thing. So as you said, one juvenile delinquent to another juvenile delinquent, if one juvenile delinquent can overcome all the struggles and challenges in life, another one sure can too. And that's part of what a session like this is all about, so that you guys can hear some similarities in my story with your story and be like, wow, if David could overcome those challenges, then I surely can too. And that's what I would like to be able to leave with you guys, is that, yeah, I've had a turbulent life, but there's a way out of that. There's an escape from that. And it's the teachings of the Buddha. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Teacher David, we have a couple of written questions. I think the one that Vibhab has, you have decided to defer to another time. It was, could you describe your previous lives and what transpired that led to the switch in your mind?
Yeah, I think we can talk about that another time.
Okay. And then Chris asks, when you refer to God as a being, would this be a deva or something else?
The teachings of the Buddha, where they're using the word deva, that is a heavenly being. That's not God. In the teachings of the Buddha, where they refer to the great Brahma, that's how they refer to God during the lifetime of the Buddha. So wherever you see great Brahma, if you're reading my resources, I put in parentheses God so that people know that that's what the Buddha was talking about. But that's a being that is referred to as God, as this great Brahma. A deva is just a heavenly being.
Okay, and Marcy has a question.
Thank you, Samantha. I think for some of us, the prerequisite to be a childhood delinquent, defining the Buddha, helped us, right? So I appreciated that a great deal. I do have some similarities, and it's wonderful to know. But one of my questions to you, Teacher David, is understanding our turbulent childhoods, right? So, we have these parents that were supposed to care for us, and ultimately, they, caused harm to us, right? So now we're on this journey, we're on this path, and we have this love that we want for all people. How is your relationship with those that had caused harm to you as a child?
Yeah. The way that I made peace with all of that is I got to the point where I just appreciated the fact that I had this life, that my mother and my father ultimately decided to have me born. And even though my father tried to kill me while I was inside the womb, inside my mom's stomach, nonetheless, I was born into this world. I did get food, clothing, shelter, medical care, enough to get to the point where I could sustain my own life. So I just got to the point where I appreciated them for what they did, not for what they didn't do. Because as a child, we grow up with all kinds of expectations of how our parents should be. And if you keep holding on to that, your parents will never meet that expectation. So I got rid of all those expectations of how my mom should have been or how my dad should have been, and just realized that, okay, I had the parents that I had, and I was able to sustain my life to this point where now I'm an adult and I can make all decisions by myself. I don't need them anymore. But I just got to the point where I had gratitude and appreciation for having this life. And that allowed me to be loving and kind with them. And of course, I needed to do loving kindness meditation. I needed to practice generosity. I needed to do a lot of things like this to do the work on my mind to let go of that resentment that I was holding for so many years. So there was teachings of the Buddha that helped me to do all of that. But the wisdom that I needed was to just think of these people as individuals who were doing the best that they could do with whatever wisdom that they had at the time, or the lack thereof. And in their mind, they were doing what they thought was the very best. And it turned out that it maybe wasn't the very best, right? Because you learn from your parents either exactly how to do things really wonderful and well in the world, and they give you all this wisdom, or you learn exactly all the unwise things to do, but you learn from that too, right? And when you can learn from the unwise things, it's like, I was told a story this morning at the temple where I remember being at McDonald's one time where my mom had ordered some food. The fries weren't on the tray, and she stood there and yelled and hollered and screamed at the cashier to get her fries, fearing this lady into giving her fries. And I just stood there and looked at her like, what is going on here? Like, I was just dumbfounded why somebody would do this. So I've never stood at McDonald's and yelled and screamed at a cashier for my French fries. But my mom taught me through that how unwise that was, because I wasn't interested in ever doing that to somebody. So we learn exactly the wise things to do or the unwise things to do through our parents. And no matter how it came to us, we can just appreciate it no matter what came to us and how it came to us. But we got that wisdom nonetheless. Mm-hmm. Yep, you're welcome.
Hey, Teacher David, we still have quite a few questions here on Zoom. Do you need to check the other platforms?
You can go ahead. I'll check while you're doing that.
Okay. VibHob asks, what are your plans for the future, 5, 10, 20 years?
My plans are to bring these teachings into the world as vibrantly as possible, restoring the teachings of the Buddha back into the world, helping them to shine in the world for a large international community to be able to understand these teachings so that we have countless enlightened beings in existence by the time I die, and then preserve the teachings during the time that I'm teaching so that after I die, that there's countless more people that can experience enlightenment after that. My son has already decided from the age of 8 that he would like to teach these teachings also. So he's planning to start teaching at some point, and I'm sure there'll be other teachers as well. So this is one of the things that allowed the teachings to fall apart from the lifetime of the Buddha, is that there wasn't kind of like an immediate successor that was going to carry the teachings forward. But my son Bailan decided that on his own, he came to me and said that that's what he would like to do. And he's keeps saying that over and over. And I've even tried to make sure he's thinking about other things and said, well, have you considered this? Or have you considered that? And he keeps coming back to this and saying, this is what I would like to do. So I suspect that, we're going to have a well-documented path to enlightenment over the next 40 years of my life. I suspect that I will die around the age of 90. We'll have lots of YouTube videos, lots of podcasts, lots of books. We'll have lots of people who are enlightened who can carry the teachings forward. And we'll have my son who will be able to carry it forward as well. So I plan to share these teachings with everybody and anybody who has a sincere interest in learning. I only teach people who are actually interested in learning. If someone is disinterested in learning, I don't share the teachings with them. It's only people who come and ask for the teachings. So as part of that, I'm mentoring and guiding my son as close as possible so that he can learn. So you guys might not know this, but at the age of 10, he started editing the podcast. So the Polycanon and English Study Group that you guys listen to on the podcast, it's being edited by him. He's 12 and a half years old now, but he already learned all the basic teachings in the group learning program. And now he's learning the Polycanon and English Study Group by editing the podcast each week. And that's an assignment that he gets, and he gets it on Saturday evening when I'm done, and then he turns it into me before Friday at 9 o'clock. And then I publish it on, shortly thereafter. So he's already in process of learning and growing. He speaks English, he speaks Thai, so he's going to be able to translate all these books into Thai. And he's learning Spanish now too, so perhaps he'll even be able to teach in Spanish someday, who knows?
Okay, Robert asks, you've mentioned some mental health issues in the past. What were the issues you had and how did you overcome them?
So when I was going through college, shortly after my grandfather passed away, who was very close to me, my mind experienced what people would refer to as psychosis. I started having significant hallucinations. I didn't sleep for like a week straight. And I got to the point where the college was aware what was going on, and the college officials took me to the hospital, and I was in a mental health ward, and they were injecting me with medications. I was in a straitjacket. I had 5-point restraints, all of these kinds of things. My mind was essentially unraveling on itself, and I didn't know what it was. And I was out of my mind anyway, regardless. But as I started to emerge from that, I was told that I had bipolar disorder, and that I would need to take medicine for the rest of my life, and that my brain was defective and it would always be this way, and there was no way that I could ever fix it. That was very heavy for me to be able to hear. I never really believed it, but I believed it enough to take medicine. And I took medicine for 24 years, but it never solved the problem. I always had difficulty sleeping. I always had difficulties with my mind. And by the time I had the experiences that I started having in 2018, I knew that I wasn't mentally ill, and it was just a matter of training my mind, and I would be able to overcome those symptoms. So as I trained my mind, I was able to completely eliminate the medication, and I haven't had the medication for 7-8 years, since 2018. And my mind is more stable, more peaceful, more joyful than ever any time in the history of my life. And I don't need any medication. I don't have any of those symptoms whatsoever, because even growing up in school, they used to try to diagnose me with different things and try to put me on medicines and stuff like that. I was always having struggles. I couldn't even fall asleep without taking a handful of medicine. Where now I sleep like a baby. I fall asleep at the snap of a finger. I have a really deep, high quality sleep. I wake up and feel completely rested and fresh every single morning. So all that turmoil that I experienced through the mental health challenges, the anguish was real, but the cause of it was not. It wasn't that my brain was defective. It was that my mind was untrained. And once I trained my mind, I was able to overcome all those symptoms. So it was through training the mind in the teachings of the Buddha that allowed me to overcome all of that.
Teacher David, I think I remember in a previous video that I had seen that you had a similar episode after you came to Thailand, and the treatment was quite different, and you had, it seems, a better result with that.
Yeah, so I had the episode when I was in college. I had 2 when I was in college. I had one later in life in 2006. Yeah, 2006, 2007. And then I had one when I was in Thailand around 2017. And, in America, it was injecting with medications. It was straitjackets, being restrained to the bed, and all these kinds of things. When I had this same experience in Thailand, I went to the hospital with my bodyguards and all this kind of stuff at that time. And they checked me into the hospital, and the doctor and 2 nurses came in. And they said, what's going on? What can we help you with? And I said, well, I have bipolar disorder. I'm having psychosis. I'm having all these difficulties. I can't sleep, all blah, blah, blah. I went through all the symptoms. And they said, well, what would you like us to do? Would you like us to do the same thing that you've done in the past? Or would you like to try something new? And I said, well, what I was doing in the past obviously wasn't working, or else I wouldn't be here today. So I'd like to try something new. And they said, okay, we're going to do something new. Don't worry, we're going to take care of you. And she tapped me on my arm and tapped me on my hand. She said, we're going to take really good care of you. We're going to do something new. And she said, if you need anything, just let us know. And she walked out of the room with the nurses, and they just smiled and they walked out of the room. And I was sitting there all by myself, waiting for something new to come. And nothing new actually came, or at least nothing physical came. So I was just sitting there in the hospital. And the only thing I knew how to do was to meditate. So I started to meditate on my own, and started training my mind a little bit. And nothing new ever came. What it was is they just let me figure it out. They just let my mind kind of reset itself rather than loading me up with medications, because they said they could do that. They said, if you'd like medication, we'll give you all your medications. But if you'd like to try something new, we'll do something new. And one of the things she said is, have you ever been treated for this before? I said, yes, I was treated in America. She said, have you ever been treated in a Thai hospital for this? And I said, no, I've never been treated in a Thai hospital for this issue. She said, okay, would you like to try what you did before or try something new? And I said, I'd like to try something new. She said, okay, we're going to do something new then. And then that's when she walked out of the room. And the something new was figure it out, train your own mind. And that's what I ended up doing. And it worked.
Terrific. Okay, I see Yihang has a question.
Yes, thank you, Samantha. And thank you, Teacher David. I was interested in that topic about juvenile delinquency, and I was thinking about another opposite side of many of Asian or Chinese families. They were having the kids or asking the kids to respect their elders, but not only respect. Probably this is a situation already swing to the other side, that they not only respect, but also feel fear or feel they have to follow, or they have to be, or a little bit conceit, they have to be, go under them, like many kids in the Chinese family or Asian families would be a little bit afraid to raise up their requirement or raise up their demands. And then growing up, they become a bit more and more feel narrowed in their mind, because they grow up with so many rules in the families and so many people they have to listen to above them. I don't know, in this case, what would you advise to these kids to become more, be themselves, or be free to express their creativity and trying to get to the middle?
Yeah, I would suggest that as early as possible, start learning and practicing these teachings, because my son was able to start learning at the age of 6. But the only reason why I was able to do that is because he had parents that were able to teach him, where a lot of us grow up in households that we don't have that. He was very fortunate that he had that ability to be able to learn at such a young age. Now, I asked him recently, how frequently do you experience discontentedness? And he said once every 3 months, he gets a little bit annoyed. Gosh, if I could have experienced that from his young age until now, that would have been amazing. And imagine he's going to even get rid of that at some point. But he said once every 3 months, he gets annoyed. Gosh, that is amazing to be able to have that as a human being, as an individual. So as early as possible, I would say learn the teachings if you can. But as a child, it's important to not adopt your parents' expectations as your own expectations of yourself, because oftentimes parents will put expectations on their children And this is very challenging for a child because they adopt those expectations of themselves, just trying to please their parents. It's wise to respect your parents. It's wise to listen to your parents. It's wise to help your parents. But once you start just kind of blindly adopting what your parents want from you and want you to do, this is where you're not thinking for yourself about what it is that you'd really like to accomplish in life. So where we do that is, as a young child growing up, we're kind of like feared into doing things the way our parents want. So even when we get 12 years old, 16 years old, 20 years old, 24 years old, we still have that in our mind, and we just tend to adopt whatever our parents want us to do. Where I learned around the age of 17 not to adopt the expectations of my family to be my expectations of myself. And I stopped adopting my family's expectations. So that's really important for a child growing up, is to listen to your parents, learn from your parents, respect your parents, help your parents, but don't adopt their expectations of what they want you to do, because they're trying to live their life through you. And instead, live your own life and try to learn these teachings as early as possible.
Thank you, Teacher David. Will you say at the beginning of you are trying to get rid of the expectations from your parents and the society, at the beginning of that, do you immediately can feel your own expectation to your life, or at the beginning you will also feel a little bit lost?
I felt very lost at different times during my life, but I was doing things that were helping me on this path without even realizing that's what I was doing. So, for example, in my early 20s, I used to set goals for myself that I know that I couldn't meet, just because I was trying to give myself the experience of working towards a goal and not meeting it, but still maintaining my peacefulness and joy. I was doing death contemplation in my early 20s before I even knew anything about the teachings of the Buddha. I was doing reflection on death, contemplation of death, to eliminate my attachment to my grandmother and my mom without even understanding that's what I was doing. I had a lot of memories from previous lives about these teachings, and I was practicing them without really realizing that that's what I was doing. So I was growing on this path without realizing that that's even what I was doing for my entire life.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Sophie has a question.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Namaskar, David. I should say Savalika.
Yes.
We met already in Thailand, and I take the opportunity to ask you a question, a personal question. I'm sorry if you explained already because I was a bit late, but I'd like to know if you are part of the monk community, or or being a teacher, ajahn, or master. I'm interested in this also Thai organization and see how you can teach in the temple, and that's my question.
Yeah, I'm not ordained as a ordained practitioner. I'm a household practitioner who chooses to live their life as a teacher of the teachings of the Buddha. And I was invited to the temple to teach because the Thai people knew that I was teaching and they were interested in me teaching. So not only have I been invited to that temple, but there's other temples around Thailand that will tend to invite me if they're looking to have a teacher who can speak English. I will sometimes get invited to different places around Thailand. So I live a very monkish lifestyle where I devote everything all my life to the teachings of the Buddha. I teach, students support me to be able to help me live my life. So I live a very monkish lifestyle, but I don't wear robes and I don't live in a temple. That's essentially, and I do that. We talked about this morning. I do that for a reason, because, the Buddha laid down this set of teachings in this lifestyle of being ordained and how to get to enlightenment. And he explained that very well. The same things that you need to do to get to enlightenment are the same things for an ordained practitioner as for a household practitioner, but the lifestyle is a bit different in the household life. And applying the teachings of the Buddha to a household life isn't something that is known widely in the world. So I was interested in providing an example for people of how to live these teachings, learn these teachings, live these teachings, and experience enlightenment from a household lifestyle so that household practitioners could understand how to do that. Where ordained practitioners already have the example of the Buddha, household practitioners didn't have anybody to be able to help them to be able to see that, because the lifestyle is very different, and by me living in the household lifestyle, the things that you experience are the same things that I experience. So I can directly relate to every issue that you're having in your life and explain to you exactly how to apply these teachings in a day-to-day life. So that was really important to me to live this lifestyle so that I could help household practitioners, and I can help ordained practitioners too, because the same thing that leads to enlightenment for a household practitioner is the same thing that leads to enlightenment for an ordained practitioner. But they tend to not learn from a household practitioner. They tend to learn from their ordained community. So I'm not a monk. I'm not ordained. That was intentional. Even though I considered ordination, my family agreed that I could ordain. A temple agreed to ordain me. But I just decided that, that's not what I was interested in. And there was much more value in this life to live in the household life and help other people from the household life so that they could see what is possible for them in the household life.
Teacher David, you said you live a monkish life. We can't help but notice that you shave your head and you wear white every day. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, shaving your hair is helpful to help you realize non-self. For those of you guys that have studied that, you don't have to shave your hair in order to realize non-self, but it is one of the practices that will really accelerate that and really help you to get to that point. And then wearing simple clothes. And if you're not interested in just wearing the same clothes like I do every day, not the same exact clothes, but the same type of clothes every day, you could actually just take your current clothes and just stack them up and pick off the top. And we'll talk about this when we get to chapter 16 of the book. I'll explain to you guys what realizing non-self means and why, wearing simple clothes, not giving the mind the opportunity to select what you're going to wear, and shaving your hair, why this is helpful. But what you choose to do on the path is your choice. I'll share with you the advice and the guidance and why these things are there, but then you decide for yourself what you're going to incorporate into your life and what you're not going to incorporate.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're finished with Zoom questions now.
Oh, okay. Excellent. I don't see any questions anywhere else.
Okay. Okay, looks like Vibhav has one coming in.
Thank you, David. I would just, and Samantha, I would just try to follow up on the plans for the future 5, 10, 20 years. I was wondering, more immediately, I mean, we've even started traveling to the US and other places. We've traveled to Mexico as well to teach people there. So I was wondering what the community can help you with to immediately kind of have more people have exposure to the teachings and have exposure to learning with you. So I guess if maybe not 20 years or so, maybe like the next few years, what do you think? What, like how the community can help really spread the teachings around would be good to know.
Yeah, the best thing you can do is learn and practice the teachings for yourself, right? That's like the absolute best thing you can do, because the way that these teachings get preserved is they get preserved in the hearts and the minds of many countless people. And that's what helps them to be continuing in the world and shared in the world. So focusing on your own growth, your own development, your own learning, your own practice, that's like the best number one thing to do, the primary thing. After that, if people would like to invite me into their community to be able to share the teachings with others, I'm available to do that, but it's up to each individual person to decide if they're able to do that or they're interested in doing that. I don't, push the teachings into the world. I wait for the world to pull the teachings into their life. So like Vibhav, you invited me to the USA this year. And I went to the USA and I taught the people there. And then you've invited me back for next year. So that helps people get exposure, but not everybody has the facilities, the resources, the time to be able to do that. So that's why the number one thing is just to learn and practice the teachings for yourself. But if there are people out there that are interested in me coming to their community and they have the means to be able to organize that with some help from me, I'd be more than willing to travel anywhere and everywhere to be able to share the teachings.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Teacher David, what mediums do you have for people to contact you for individual help or just classroom teachings?
Yeah, so I help students in 4 different ways. Is I share the teachings in classes, so students can ask questions in live classes. They can submit questions on our Facebook group, and I'm the only one who answers those questions. They can send me private message, and I'm in all the messaging apps and email and all that kind of stuff. Or they can schedule personal guidance right from our website. They can schedule a session, and then we can meet in person in Zoom one-on-one. Or if we're in the same town together, we can just meet face-to-face. And I can do that with an individual, or sometimes couples or families like to meet with me, and I can do it that way too. So those are the 4 different ways that I'm available to provide individual guidance.
Okay, thank you. We touched on this earlier, that your life is dedicated to the teachings of the Buddha. And I know just from the times that I've seen you teaching and your availability and whatnot, it's really 24/7. So this is your life, and with that comes no salary. So there is the need for support. And I know that your students do that, but I'm not sure that everyone knows the different ways to do it, besides the one you mentioned before, as far as learning the teachings and following the teachings.
Yeah, so if people would like to support what I do, there's sharing time, effort, energy, and resources if they would like. I always share the teachings without any expectation of anything in return, because I'm just interested in seeing these teachings reach as many people as possible. But like I said, people need to pull the teachings into their life. But if people would like to contribute time and effort to help me, like there's a student right now, in addition to my son, Bailan, there's another student who edits the other podcast, like this podcast right here. There's a gentleman in Australia named Ranjit, actually a friend of Vibhav, who was here in Thailand recently. And he asked me, he said, "Hey, what do you need me to do? I can help you." So he edits the podcast. There's other people who do other things. And there's people who clean the temple. There's people who do these different things. I don't ask them to do these things, but if they would like to offer, they can offer their support and their help, either their time, effort, energy, or resources. Some people offer financial contributions. They're able to do that through our website by going to buddhadailywisdom.com. They can click on support us, and you can either set up a recurring donation on PayPal or a one-time donation, or you can send money through Wise or Venmo or to a bank account. These are all things that are possible, but it's up to each person to decide if they would like to do that. And just understand that I never have any expectation of that, because I offer the teachings at no cost, but there is a cost to share these teachings. So like the computer that I'm using, the microphone I'm using, the lights that I'm using, everything, the cell phone that I write students on and I help students through that. All of these things are provided by the students to be able to help me help you, right? So that's what I always share with people is like, you're helping me to help you. There's this mutual support. So any kind of support that you guys give me, it comes right back to you guys in terms of giving you support and help. And of course, I use a certain portion of these donations for my own personal life, like food and clothing and shelter and medical care. I even use a little bit of it for my son's school. We just moved into a very inexpensive online school. $79 a month is what we're paying for his school. which is amazing because he's getting this really great online education. And sometimes I take him on trips because he needs to see the world. He needs to learn how to travel and stuff like that. And I know he's planning to teach the teachings of the Buddha. So, I'll take him on little trips here or there and teaching him about the world. And I see this as a direct support that I'm helping the teachings by helping my son. It's helping the teaching. So you guys will see me from time to time, take him on a little trip here or there. And we do that with very minimal budget. So any support you guys give me, I use a certain portion of that for the things that I need to be able to take care of. But then I use a portion of that to supply the electricity for the temple, or the water and the vacuum and the cleaning supplies and the paper towels and the toilet paper and all the different things that go into supporting a setup to be able to share these teachings as far and wide as I do.
Okay. Let's just see, there's one little thing on chat. Okay. Thank you from Miriam. Okay. Well, I think we're finished with questions here in Zoom. I just wanted to thank you again for answering our questions and sharing your life with us. And I think it makes a big difference for people to understand that their teacher has been through as many difficult things as we have, or even more so, and that you're, relatable and you understand what we're going through, and available anytime we need you. Yeah, definitely. I'm very appreciative of having dedicated students to be able to learn and practice. I taught classes where there's just one student in the class. And I've done talks where there's 20,000 people. I've been invited to places out in Eastern Thailand where there's 20,000 people there, and I was teaching all of them at one time. So I'm willing to teach as many or as few people as are needed. If there's one person interested in the teachings, I'm willing to share them. So what I plan to do over the next 7 months is to gradually walk you guys through learning and developing the path to enlightenment using this book as our guide. So if you get one of those from downloading it from our website or whatever way you would like to do that, slowly start reading that. And now over the next several Sundays and Wednesdays, you can attend live, or you can watch the recordings if you can't attend live from our YouTube channel, from our podcast, from Facebook. And you'll be able to gradually, slowly learn and understand what it takes to be able to train your mind and experience this better way of life that the Buddha taught. So I'm very pleased that there's so many of you guys that are interested in learning and growing on the path. Know that I'm very dedicated. I'm very motivated. I have nothing but ambition and enthusiasm to be able to share these teachings with you guys. I will be here each Sunday and each Wednesday, unless there's a tornado or a hurricane or a typhoon, or the house falls apart, or there's no internet connection, some kind of impermanence like that. But, you'll see that I show up every single Sunday, every single Wednesday. I'll be here to be able to help you guys. So thank you for your interest to learn and practice these teachings. I have nothing but admiration and respect for people who choose to do this work, because it's really challenging to go inward and look at your own mind and realize that you're not yet a perfect person, right? It's very hard for the ego to accept the fact that you are not yet perfect. Oftentimes, if we've grown up Christian, we're taught that Jesus Christ was perfect from the time of birth until death, which isn't actually true, but that's what we're taught. And we think that we're supposed to be that way too. But what you can understand is that we came into this world, every single one of us, as imperfect beings because our mind had these pollutions that the Buddha discovered. But we can actually purify the mind of those and get to the point where you are functioning as a perfect human being, where you're not causing harm to other people. And the teachings of the Buddha will guide you in how to do that. So I'm very interested, very motivated, very enthused to be able to share these teachings with all of you guys over the coming months. So next week on the 1st of June, Sunday, I'm going to start with the official restart, where I'm going to be walking you guys through some of the teachings of the Buddha and really helping you understand how to make the best out of this program. And then from that point forward, I'm just going to be sharing teachings with you every single Sunday,
every single Wednesday. And gradually, slowly but surely, you'll integrate these teachings into your life and experience more and more results. This is a program that you might need to take more than one time. I see many of you guys are here kind of learning again. You've maybe already taken this in the past. So don't feel like you have to learn everything all at once. This is slowly, gradually steeping the mind, soaking the mind in these teachings. So thank you, Samantha, for moderating for today. Thank you for all of you guys asking questions. Thank you for anybody who's listening. Thank you for any support that you guys offer to me. I really appreciate that. Without that, I wouldn't be able to do the things that I'm doing. So thank you all. And perhaps I'll see you guys in one of these future classes. Be well and take care. Sawadee krap.
Sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.